Adesanya, Blachowicz, champion versus champion. The sort of fight that makes you excited months in advance. For the purpose of making the wait a little less excruciating, let's do a pre-fight breakdown of this historic bout. First, we're gonna take a look at the realistic size comparison between both champs. Second, we're gonna list their strengths and weaknesses based on their stats and their notable wins. Third, we're going to estimate their potential game plans against each other. And finally, we're going to take a look at the variables that could make a major difference in this two-belt battle. Let's go. First of all, let's take a look at the size comparison. Adesanya at 6'4" is 2 inches taller than Jan, and he's also got a 2-inch advantage with an 80-inch reach, which is significant. But compared to what Izzy is used to, it's not that much of an advantage. For example, he had an 8-inch reach advantage over Paulo Costa, 7 over Romero, 7 over Whittaker, and 8.5 over Gastelum. However, Anderson Silva is 6'2" with a 77-inch reach, virtually identical to Blachowicz. Based on those measures, it should pretty much look like this. But of course, we have to consider the fact that Adesanya is moving up to light heavyweight. Izzy is simply not the type of guy to put on a lot of muscle mass to be as huge as possible. He's not even a big middleweight. He knows that this game is give and take. Adding weight would give him some advantages, but it would also take away from some of his biggest strengths. I would be extremely surprised if he adds on more than 5 or 10 pounds. However, he's not going to have to cut as much weight, which could definitely benefit him in his performance. Everything else should pretty much be the same. And that's approximately how it's going to look like in the octagon. Second of all, let's talk about what these guys do best. Well, they fight pretty decent, but let's try to be a little more specific. Adesanya's strengths are special. There's no way around that. He's got great flowy footwork, body elasticity and flexibility on another level, humiliating head movement, an insane variety of striking attacks put together with his unique ability to control range. He is the master of bait with an 87% takedown defense and a 1.2 knockdown ratio. 2 times out of 3, your significant strike won't even touch him, and if it does, the chances of it landing clean are abysmal. If you wait on him or stay at a distance, he'll slowly pick you apart in his sleep, but if you apply pressure, he'll counter you effectively from any angle, making sure your blitz puts you at risk. He can swing from the hips to counter while he's creating an exiting route for his head. The last Stylebender is arguably the greatest striker the UFC's ever seen. But he's got a hell of an opponent in front of him. Always underestimated, Jan Blachowicz ages like fine wine. In his last few fights, Jan proved that Polish power is for real. And not only is it for real, it is a decimating tool. The 205-pound champion has got serious KO power in both hands, dangerous BJJ black belt skills, scary durability, and extremely deceiving snappy head movement. He varies his forward attacks really well, using different types of steps and advanced entries to get his big frame inside range. He is the Blachoblitz. He capitalizes on anything predictable or repetitive from his opponents, and in chaos, he stays aware, using his patience. And that element will be vital against Izzy, who's a devastating counter-striker. But even if he's undefeated, the middleweight champ still got a few exploitable weaknesses. One of them is his predictable game plan. Blachowicz might not know all the precise details, but he knows Adesanya will look to counter him. That certainty, in itself, is a big disadvantage for Izzy. Also, he doesn't use a traditional defense. His hands-down style makes him a tricky target to hit, but it also makes him vulnerable if he does get hit. One clean shot is all it takes. With Polish power, those are some very high stakes. Plus, Adesanya heavily relies on his read. If you don't give him anything to read, he doesn't have anything to work with. And if you're clever enough to give him false reads, he can fall into a trap. We'll talk about that a bit more in a few minutes. Now, what are Jan's exploitable weaknesses? Well, even though his particular defense has shown to be effective to block a lot of stuff, it is not the best to defend head kicks or front kicks. If Blachowicz isn't careful, he could be exposed. Also, the only time he's been finished in the UFC was during one of his blitzes against Thiago Santos. The Brazilian countered him while his chin was straight up in the air, and needless to say, Blachowicz cannot repeat that mistake against Adesanya. Another thing that could put him in trouble is this. When Jan is close to his opponent, firing short, powerful combinations, he tends to hang out in the danger zone a little too long. Again, Izzy is quite unforgiving for that type of mistake. He's faced monsters like Costa, Romero, Whitaker, Gastelum, Vettori, and so far, no one has gotten the better of him. On the other hand, Jan Blachowicz has faced bigger monsters like Reyes, Anderson, Souza, Rockhold, Manua, Cannonier, and seems to always find a way to win despite the opinion of some oddsmakers. Both Izzy and Jan already proved that they can go 25 minutes, but we have to give the cardio advantage to Adesanya simply because of the recovery aspect. The last round against Gastelum was absolutely insane in that regard. So, now that we've listed their strengths and weaknesses, it's time to figure out what their individual game plans might look like. Well, first, it's going to be a must for Blachowicz to target the legs and the body of Izzy, because headhunting against Israel is just not smart. So far, no one has been able to implement that strategy effectively. But if anyone can do it, it's Jan. In his last 4 fights, 19% of his strikes were aimed at the body, and 27% were aimed at the legs. If he keeps that up, he should have a decent shot at beating Adesanya. Another thing that no one has been able to do against Izzy is using the grappling threat. It's very hard to take Israel down, and it's even harder to keep him there. But at the very least, you need to make him worried about takedowns. If he senses that taking him down isn't even part of your game plan, it makes life very easy for him. And that's why Blachowicz has to implement level changes, takedown feints, and takedown attempts if he wants his striking to be effective. If he does that, it will set up his strikes, it will set up his footwork, and Israel will be much more hesitant. For instance, if Adesanya is using his matrix stuff a bit too much, it would be a great time to initiate the grappling, or the clinch, or even target the body. If you let Izzy get away with this, you lose. It's as simple as that. Headhunting is the natural reaction in that situation. Blachowicz has to be smarter than that. It's just
super necessary.
Every time a potential shot looks too easy, Blachowicz has to realize it simply won't land. If Izzy's head looks right there for the taking, it means it will disappear in the next nanosecond, leaving only air for your hand to touch. That's why Blachowicz will need to lead Israel into the shots. While putting intelligent pressure on him, Blachowicz will have to throw the shots Adesanya is not expecting, by hiding them with shots Adesanya is expecting. For example, if he worries about the rear hand, make it look like a power hand strike and make him circle into the lead hook. Adesanya is pretty much always evading the worrisome weapon in advance, so if Blachowicz can use that to his advantage, maybe he can intercept Izzy's head when he doesn't expect it. The secret for that to happen? Variation. Variation of the combinations, variation of the blitzes and entries, variation of the line of head movement for defense and for attacks. Variation is the best way to complicate Izzy's life. Punishing his numerous kicks every time is another decent way to achieve that goal. Now, like we said earlier, Blachowicz has the advantage of knowing the majority of Israel's game plan. To exploit that, he's going to have to prepare for how Adesanya plans on countering him. If his preparation's good enough, he might be able to anticipate the counters from the last Stylebender, and maybe even find ways to trigger them in a predictable way. Blachowicz has already shown the ability to counter the counter, which is rare, and doing this against Adesanya would be nothing short of legendary. Now, what should be the game plan for the younger fighter? I think the only sensible choice is a flying armbar in the first 5 seconds. If that doesn't work, it's going to be very hard to recover from that. Thanks for watching, guys. Psych. Like always, Izzy's going to probably stay on the outside, trying to pick Blachowicz apart with kicks. The lead leg of Jan will be a very juicy target, especially early. If Izzy's able to circle out with angles and avoid the grappling in the process, if he can feint effectively on the feet, all of that will force Blachowicz inside the pocket, and that's exactly what Adesanya will be looking for. As long as the front kicks to the body are not caught, Israel needs to keep throwing them, because it's a relatively easy target to aim at. Combined with the leg kicks and the feints, they will frustrate Blachowicz and make him hesitant. Variation will also be key for Israel. He cannot give anything too predictable to Jan, who's a master at finding opportunity to capitalize on, and that includes counters. Izzy cannot circle out the same way every time because he could get chopped off by leg kicks and body kicks. He has to offer his head to Blachowicz in different ways. He has to occasionally go to the body to set up the head strikes. The most important part of Izzy's game plan, in my opinion, is this. He has to make his reads as soon as possible. Because he relies so heavily on his reads, Adesanya tends to stay a little more passive at the beginning of the fight. If he stays passive even a little bit, that plays out right into Jan's game. The Blachoblitz will work if Izzy doesn't have a good understanding of its timing. That could be very dangerous early in the fight. If Adesanya is able to make his reads quickly and Polish power visits the pocket, Izzy will be there to answer the door. He will swing from the hips while creating an exiting angle, and his precision will enter an epic battle against Jan's last-moment head movement. So, now that we've explored strengths and game plans and sizes, it's time to think about the variables that might have an impact on this fight. Well, to start, can Blachowicz put Adesanya on the back foot? Blachowicz has way better footwork and movement for offensive maneuvers than Costa. He can be pretty hard to read with all his different types of steps. Most of the time, Adesanya can use his footwork to nullify pressure, but can he do it against Jan? Can he do it early without staying too passive? Will Jan be able to put Izzy's back against the cage? It all depends on if Adesanya is able to survive, counter, or prevent the Blachoblitz. Also, can Adesanya actually hurt Jan to the body and to the legs? Because it's a very big dude we're talking about, and Izzy's power comes from his precision. Food for thought. For me, the most interesting question is this. Will Blachowicz be the first? Will he be the first to defeat Israel? Will he be the first to hit him to the body effectively without getting hit? Will he be the first to use the grappling threat as a weapon to set up the rest of his game and complicate Izzy's game plan? Too many people try to stand and bang with Adesanya mainly because he doesn't allow them to do anything else. Will Blachowicz be any different? Can he slip an Adesanya counter and respond with a fluid body kick, or a takedown, or a feint? Can Izzy counter the blitz with elbows? Can he counter the kicks with straight punches? Will the size difference be a factor? Fortunately for us, those questions will be answered soon. One thing I do know is that I'm extremely excited for this fight and I can't fucking wait. If you want to hype the MMA community, please share this video. What are your predictions for this fight? What do you think is going to happen? Alright guys, see ya.